Hello, everyone. Before we dive into today's episode, I wanted to remind you that my book, Drummers on Drumming, is available now on Amazon as both a paperback and an ebook. Based on the Big Fat 5 segment of this podcast, where I sit down with my favorite drummers to discuss the 5 records and stories that shaped their approach to the instrument, this book is packed with insights from the drummers who redefined how we think about the modern drum set. You can grab your copy now by checking the link in this episode's show notes or simply searching Drummers on Drumming on Amazon. So thank you for all the support, and now let's get into the show. What is up? Welcome back to Big Fat 5, a podcast financially supported by Big Fat Snare Drum. My name is Benjamin Solomon Hilsinger, and this week's guest is Zach Jones. Zach is a drummer, singer, songwriter, and producer from Brooklyn, New York. He's performed and recorded with artists such as Sting, Ingrid Michaelson, A Great Big World, Elle King, and many more. He also writes and records music with his own group, Zach Jones and the Tricky Bits. He's the kindest dude I've ever talked to. I was smiling the whole time, and we could all benefit from being a little more like Zach on and off the kit. I know you're going to enjoy my chat with him and his 5 records that helped shape him into the player he is today. All right, cheers. All right, so for this list, what was the criteria for an album to be in the running and then ultimately make your top 5?
Well, this was obviously excruciating.
Yeah, sorry.
To pick 5. I'm sure a lot of people feel that way, but what I ended up deciding to do was just sort of give myself the guardrails of they were 5 things that came to mind immediately, so I didn't overthink these. And they're all... When you use the word formative, these are really early days of my playing drums, probably the first 5-6 years that I played the drum set, really deep in my bones, the records and the songs and the playing. And they're all records that I played along to in my bedroom or my parents' basement. You know, they're a really big deal for me on a elemental sort of level. So those all felt like a good choice. And also they're all records that my dad either gave me or recommended to me. He's a musician himself. He was the guy who taught me my first couple beats on the drum set. And so it's a lot of stuff that he went, hey, you should check this out, you know?
That's a good dad.
Yeah, along my journey of now I can probably play a little more, so check this out. And, yeah, that was the criteria.
What was your dad's or is your dad's main instrument, if he has one?
He's mostly a guitar player and a singer. Mm-hmm. But he's a good bass player and a really solid drummer too. I think when he was growing up in bands, he started playing bass because nobody else wanted to play bass. I feel like that's a common story, but yeah. I grew up playing with him in church. He was the music leader at our church. And so that was the first band I was in was him and guys his age playing, and women his age playing church music. And then, but it's very rootsy Americana kind of church. It's like if Dawes was a church band kind of is the
Weirdly
vibe.
enough, Griffin was actually the guest on the last week's guest, if people are listening right now.
No way.
So, yeah.
Great. I love
amazing.
his playing. Yeah, geez. I love that band. But yeah, so it was that band. And then I started a band with my peers after I had been playing for a couple years. But yeah, so my dad still is a guitar player, singer, and now he's got a couple young players who he's kind of mentoring in the church music thing. And so he's a wonderful teacher, mentor to all my bandmates growing up. And he's just kind of a musical father figure to a lot of people.
Have you done one of those pro drum? For some reason, maybe it's the Mandela effect. I remember seeing you do it, but have you done any of those pro drum Nelson Drum Shop like grooves of the day thing where they just have you play?
I did one at Pro Drum. Yeah, I haven't been to Nelson. I see you're wearing a Nelson hat, but I haven't been there.
Yeah.
I did go to Pro Drum though when we were in LA because the guy who techs for me on this tour, his name's Gary Grimm, and he's the best dude. You know Gary?
Yeah, yeah. He was.
No way.
I think he was he Pink's.
Yes.
What's his name? Mark's drum tech for a while. So yeah,
Yes.
yeah. No, we sent him some stuff. Gary's awesome.
Oh, I love that. Anytime I name a drummer I like, he has worked with them at some point. You know, he's been on so many great gigs. His first big tour was teching for Jeff Porcaro on Toto. Like, the dude is deep. So he knew the guys at Pro Drum. So when we were in LA, I said, I really want to go to Pro Drum. Do you want to come with me and we'll hang? And that was really fun. He got to catch up with Jerry, and it's such a special place. Yeah, and I live in New York, so we have a great drum shop called Good Hands, which used to be Steve Maxwell. But man, to step into a place like that in LA, there used to be so many great drum shops in Midtown Manhattan. They're all gone. So for me, it was a special treat of like, oh man, this is really the thing. All these guys used to hang out. You see all the photos on the walls of little Jimmy Keltner and like all this stuff the history there is mind blowing, and a real like social sort of congregation point for the drum scene, and especially LA with all of its studio history. Like Hal Blaine ordered his concert tom kit through them, and it's incredible. It's so cool that they're still there and killing it, apparently, because I think now the online sales are a big thing too, and seems like they're doing really well.
Yeah, and they've been doing that groove of the day thing, which is getting more people to just even know it exists, you know? And so when you walked in there, did you know you were going to do that, or was it just kind of like, do something, and you're like, okay?
I didn't know explicitly, but I had a hunch that maybe we would do one.
Yeah. What'd you play?
Well, they had this, the kit they had set up was like a 60s Ludwig kit, which I've never played one that I don't love. And they had the bass drum kind of wide open, kind of Bonham-y. And so when I sat down and just hit the drums, I wanted to play something where the kick drum notes were long, and, the sound of the kit kind of informed what I ended up playing.
Mm-hmm.
And I just played a little, I don't know, kind of funky offbeat Bonham, Steve Jordan, some kind of something groove, Yeah. I didn't have anything particular in mind, but that's what kind of popped out when I sat down.
Well, I gotta say, speaking of drum sounds, man, I mean, especially, and I'm gonna be referring to this Drumeo video I just saw of you. Your touch and your technique, it brings out such a musical sound in the drums. I was astounded. I mean, I know Drumeo. I'll give them credit too. They record things really well and everything, but your consistency on the snare it was very inspiring, man. You make drums sound good.
Thank you. That's really nice. Thank you. For me, it's about that, and it's about making it feel good and making everyone on stage or in the studio have a good time. So, and those guys definitely, they have it so dialed in at Drumeo. It's ridiculous, and we got so much done in a day. It was staggering, actually, but they just know how to make it happen and keep the day rolling. And anyway, great sounds and fun for me, because I love recording. I love being in the studio. So it was a cool environment for that too, because I had my in-ears in and I had a great, really nice mix coming back at me. So it put me in kind of studio rat mode, which felt good, especially being on tour as much as I am. It's nice to do that sometimes,
Well, speaking of 60s Ludwigs, this is a great segue. Good co-host.
Yes.
So let's just jump into your first of the Big Fat Five. So the album is with the Beatles. The artist is the Beatles. The release year is 1963. Bunch of key tracks, and then we'll choose one of them to listen to. But yeah, the drummer is Ringo Starr. I guess for the sake of the listeners, I will list a few of the ones that you wanted to point out. So
Sure.
It Won't Be Long, All I've Got to Do, All My Lovin', I Want to Be Your Man. Classics. It's so crazy with the Beatles. I think of if there was a band that just had only I Want to Hold Your Hand, like that was their only number one hit, they would still be a household name. And
Yeah,
they
man.
had so many. Anyways, take it away.
Well, the background is when I started playing drums when I was 9, and probably when I was 10 or 11, my parents got me for my birthday. I got a boombox that had a CD tray in it,
Huge.
and yeah, which I'm of the age that that was a big deal to have a CD player.
Absolutely.
And they gave me 2 CDs when they gave me the boombox, and it was the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory film soundtrack because I loved that. I still do. And with the Beatles, that was the other one. So I had, I had an awareness of the Beatles mostly through hearing my dad play stuff. He did like a lot of like solo bar gigs doing covers in addition to the church stuff. So he would play mostly like 60s, 70s pop and rock kind of stuff. A lot of Monkees, a lot of Stones. And I knew some of the Beatles tunes through that. We had like a cassette tape that was some kind of Beatles collection, but I don't remember what it was. And I've never seen that collection again. But anyway, so With the Beatles was my first real album of theirs. And it was a big play along one for me. I would just put that record on top to bottom and play along to it in my bedroom. It's still, I'm a total Beatles obsessive. Like I've listened to all the albums a million times. I've listened to all the deep cuts and also all the alternate studio versions and weird mixes and halves of demos and all that stuff.
All the BBC live sessions and
oh man, that's a whole other thing that particularly for people who don't get Ringo, the BBC stuff is often something I point to as like he's just burning on that stuff. He sounds so good. So I love his playing on Abbey Road. I love his playing on Revolver and Rubber Soul and the stuff where they got a bit more experimental and he got more into studio stuff. But there's something about the early stuff, the With the Beatles, this record in particular, just to hear him, it's probably 3 or 4 mics on the kit and they're doing a couple takes of each song. It's all their sort of club date repertoire in addition to some new originals. It just doesn't get better than this for me in terms of it's where I started and it's still, man, that's just it. He always has that little swing to his playing. It's always interesting and he gets a great sound, but it's so supportive of the songs and it's so melodic and it's everything I want to do when I play the drums. It was a really good place for me to start, particularly because the originals on this record are fantastic, but then there's all these Motown songs and girl group tunes and like tracks of the day that I knew them through this record first before I went back and dug into Motown and all that kind of stuff. So it was a great rabbit hole for me to go down, chasing down all the tracks on this record, the original versions, and I just love it.
Well, do you want to listen to I Want to Be Your Man?
Yeah, great.
Let's just listen to about a minute of that. So here we go.
Cool.
I wanna be your lover, baby. I wanna be your man. I wanna be your lover, baby. I wanna be your man. Love you like no other, baby, like no other can. Love you like no other, baby, like no other can. I wanna be your man. 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 Tell me that you love me, baby. Let me understand. Tell me that you love me, baby. I wanna be your man. I wanna be your lover, baby. I wanna be your man. I wanna be your lover, baby. I wanna be your man. 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 I wanna be your man.
He really exemplifies to me like the core thing of rock and roll as a genre. Like if you listen to Little Richard or the records that really Chuck Berry really invented this stuff, it's that tension of like it's not quite a straight eighth note and it's not quite swung, or somebody is swinging and somebody's playing straight. And so it's that song is like it's kind of swung, but all of his fills are triplet fills. when he does those little breaks, it's really swung, and then they go back to this kind of half thing, and it just feels so great, and they're so good at it. And it's all over, especially that BBC record is such a great example when they do Little Richard tunes, and he's just so steeped in that feel. I love his playing on that, and the drum sound is great.
Mm-hmm. All right, so number 2, a compilation record. It's called 60s Soul, When a Man Loves a Woman. Various artists, of course. Release years 1997, but of course 60s and 70s probably.
Yep.
The key tracks: Soul Man, Knock on Wood, Chain of Fools. The drummers throughout are Al Jackson Jr., Roger Hawkins, greats. But anyways, yeah, so take it away.
Yeah, this record, I hadn't thought about this in many, many years, this particular compilation. But when you sent me the prompt, it came to my head right away. Like I could picture the album cover. And it's just some like random, I think we probably got it at Walmart, like just some kind of bargain bin compilation. But I feel like, especially in that era, a lot of compilations like that, there would be some re-recordings or there'd be some weird stuff going on. So this is all original recordings. The thing I realized looking back at this is like, this is a record that sent me down a lot of different rabbit holes. You have a couple Muscle Shoals tracks, you have a couple Stax songs, you have some Chicago soul, Aretha's on there, Sam and Dave. Like, it's a neat and tidy little package of like whole universes of American music that you can dig into. And I think subsequently, Al Jackson in particular, like I'm totally obsessed with Stax, and Al's playing in particular is I think about him like every time I play the drums, and I even have a little picture of him on my kick drum on tour.
Really?
Yeah, because he's one of those guys to me that's like, when in doubt, if I'm having a weird night or if I am questioning myself, I'm just like, just do that and everything will be cool. Make it feel great. Don't be fancy. You can just tell that he was a pleasure to play with for everyone in that rhythm section. I mean, Booker T and the MGs they're all incredible. And Al is he drives the music in such a cool way, but he also grounds it. All of his fills are super hooky and melodic and memorable. And he gets that snare drum sound is just second to none. I just love his playing. And Roger Hawkins, of course, is like also unbelievable. I never knew who was on a lot of those tunes, the Muscle Shoals records. And so again, that was a whole other rabbit hole to go down. And then the Chicago stuff, like Curtis Mayfield, all the records that he produced. And there's so much good stuff that this compilation kind of led me to. Yeah, this was a big play along record for me. I would just press play at the top and play until it was over and try to get it to feel like these guys.
Yeah, I don't think this one's on this record, but Roger Hawkins on Land of a Thousand Dances of Wilson Pickett. That drum part was so fun to play along to as a kid. Poo, ka, poo, poo, ka, poo.
Yes.
I really wanted to get Roger on, but unfortunately he passed away last year. But that would have been great to hear what was going on in that head.
Yes, totally. All of the guys on those records, There's no Wilson Pickett on this record. And I would say the other like major branch of this tree that's missing is the Motown catalog. But that around the same time, I had some Motown compilations too, and got really into those drummers who I also just love. But I have to say there's something about Al in particular, like I said, that is just like, I'm just blown away by. I think also being a fan of Steve Jordan, because he's been a big deal for me too. You can hear the lineage of that. I mean, he and Al have such a similar feel and approach. And Jordan's another guy who just, he's got the big hi-hats he lays in, and every fill is like considered and musical and tasteful. So I love this little compilation. I turned it into a playlist on my Apple Music just to like relive the
Sure.
the CD experience. And it's fun. It's a great collection of songs.
Do you want to listen to Soul Man, Knock on Wood, Chain of Fools? What are you thinking?
Ooh, let's listen to Knock on Wood.
Okay. This is Eddie Floyd, by the way.
Just the way this pushes into the verse.
I don't wanna lose this
Great.
So subtle, yeah.
that I've got.
And the way that his snare and Steve Cropper's guitar stuff is locked is just... If you listen to the rest of the tune, there's nothing much more than that, but it's just like makes you move. It glues the whole rhythm section together and the horns, everything. It's just like, I just think it feels amazing. And all of those choices that he makes are just correct. It's hard to imagine another approach to that tune.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets such a great sound.
All right, well, this, my gosh, Carlos Vega, he's a drummer that whenever I have spare time, I try and go down as many rabbit holes. And when I go to record shops, I try and find the ones he's on. That song, is it 5 Bricks he's on, is just, his drum parts are so good. Anyways, the album's live. Artist is James Taylor. Released here is 1993. Key tracks, Your Smiling Face, Mexico, Country Road. That break is insane.
So good.
Take it away, yeah.
Also, I think people will know his playing from the Grease film soundtrack. If you've never heard him anywhere else, that's him on that whole record.
Had no idea. That's awesome.
I think maybe he had worked with Olivia Newton-John or something, and so but he's the guy on all that stuff. So you have heard his drumming, whether you realized it or not. He's one of those dudes.
Wow, cool.
This record, I grew up in southern New Jersey, but my mom is from southern Vermont originally. And at least once a year, like around Christmas, we would take a family road trip up to Vermont. And it was like a 6-hour drive to get to my grandmother's house. And so we listened to a lot of music. And when I was really young, we would listen to some kids' music and whatever. But this record was just always in the rotation, I remember. And everybody likes it. And we had like a single CD version of this where it was kind of like half of the double album, mostly hits, I think. This is one of those things that just sort of crept into my DNA without me even realizing it necessarily. I don't remember this being a big play-along record for me, although I did learn his break on Country Road, like note for note, because I think it's just flawless. One of the reasons I wanted to include this is because I think he's one of those guys who just doesn't get talked about a lot. And it's understandable because he was gone early, and I think he would have played on so many more great records and so much great stuff. But this record in particular for me, like maybe counterintuitively, but when I got offered the gig touring with Sting, this was one of the first things that I thought about was Carlos's approach to this music, because the original James Taylor records, you're talking about Russ Kunkel and Rick Marotta and, Gadd and some of the great session drummers of that era. And Carlos nods to those guys, but completely does his own thing with it. He plays so tastefully. His sound, his drum sound, his cymbal sound, his touch, his pocket, like it's all just, to me, it's just perfect. I think if you want to learn how to play for a singer-songwriter, this is a good place to really study his work on this. Yeah, and he brings so much excitement. The fills he chooses and the way that he kind of navigates playing in this band, because the band is all killers, background vocals. I think James Taylor's vocals on this record are incredible. And I think Carlos you can hear that he really drives and inspires everybody on the stage. It's like the pinnacle to me of how to do a gig like this. Speaking of Steve Jordan, there's a James Taylor live at the Beacon Theater. It's like a filmed thing that you can watch. I think it was not long after Carlos died, and they called Steve Jordan to fill in the drum chair. So obviously that must have been incredibly heavy and difficult for everyone, including Steve. And there's a moment early in the concert, they're doing the song Every Day by Buddy Holly, James's version of that. And Steve counts it off and they lock into the verse groove. And James turns around and gives him this look that is like, it's just this moment to me of like, that's what it's all about. The artist turns around and gives him this look like, dude, this feels amazing. And they communicate so much with just a quick little sort of glance. And Steve looks so happy that James is feeling that way. And it's just such a beautiful moment to me of like how to do that job so well and what to look for to know that you're succeeding is, do you make the artist feel like that? Do you make the other players on stage feel like that? Like just a moment of pure joy because the music is coming together so beautifully. That's a little aside, but
no, it's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah, he's always just got such incredible players, and obviously now Gad plays drums with him, and that's a whole other thing. And he brings his own feel to it, which I love. But yeah, Carlos on this record, man, it's like just outstanding, I think.
Wondering if I should say this, but you brought it back up, so I will say it.
Yeah.
I saw a video of, it was like a sound check for Country Road with Steve playing.
Yes.
And they were playing that breakdown. And it was the only time I've ever seen Steve get, and let me be clear, he kills it. He sounds amazing.
Yeah.
But because, I'm not sure if it's because I'm so used to this version of Country Road, but it's the only time I've seen Gad play anything. And I was like, I kind of wish it was the other guy,
Yeah.
you know? Like,
I get it.
Yeah, Carlos is just, iconic. So,
Yeah.
do you want to play, since we played Country Road on the podcast before, do you want to play Your Smiling Face, Mexico? What's your vibe?
Your Smiling Face is great.
Okay.
Again, this is one of those that the original record is so special, and so I think it's Russ Kunkel on this. But man, Carlos does his own thing, and the band sounds incredible. And James is just like fired up. You can hear it.
All right, here we go.
Whenever I see your smiling face, I have to smile myself because of love. And when you give me that pretty little pout, it turns me inside out. Something about your thing I don't know. Isn't it amazing a man like me can feel this way? Oh, tell me how much longer it can grow stronger every day. Oh, I thought I was in love like a couple of times before with the girl next door, but that was long before I met you. Now I'm sure that I won't forget you, and I thank my lucky stars that you are good, you are not just love that needed sent down to break my heart. Isn't it amazing a man like me can feel this way?
It's literally a perfect performance.
Yeah, it really is. And it reminds me, I think it's also a great record for anyone who thinks that James Taylor is just like a sleepy, folky 70s guy. Like, he's burning on this whole record. He sounds so good.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really cool to hear him open up like that. He's such a great musician. And yeah, one of the things I love about Carlos that we'll talk about on a couple records from now too is like almost like a big band drummer, like the way that he kicks those little figures with the band, the way that he sets up the little unison figures. I think he's so tasteful about it and understated and keeps it as a part of the groove. He doesn't make a big production out of like, I'm going to do a big fill before this crash. It's all really like churning and flowing, but he kind of kicks those, not horns, but those kinds of figures in such a tasteful way, which I love.
So I'm looking at your video. People can't see it, but you're wearing a Stax shirt. Where'd you get that? That's awesome.
I got this online from the Stax website, but I did go there. I actually took, speaking of my dad, I took him to Memphis earlier this year, as like a kind of Christmas gift, because he had never been, and obviously music is a big touch point for us. So I took him to Memphis, and we went to Sun Records, and we went to Graceland, and for both of us, the highlight was the Stax Museum. And if you're ever in Memphis, it's incredible because it's not just a Stax museum, it's a museum of American R&B and soul music. It's very comprehensive and really informative, and you can tell that it's been done with a lot of love. Like, everybody who works there was so cool to hang with, and it's a really special place. It's worth the trip for sure.
All right, so number 4, the album is Every Breath You Take, the classics, compilation of the Police. This compilation came out in 95. Key tracks, Can't Stand Losing You, Every Little Thing She Does Is Magic, every song basically.
It's true, yeah.
Yeah, and then of course Mr. Stewie Copeland. So who, if people don't know, you've already referenced it. I mean, you play a lot of this stuff live. So with the dude. So take it away.
Well, yeah, I mean, present gig notwithstanding, this is truly, like, aside from the Beatles, the Police are my favorite band. I love every one of the albums. I love the songwriting. I love the production. I love the playing. It's just one of those bands to me that when the three of those guys get together, it's total magic, and it's greater than the sum of its parts, and so special to me. And obviously, I love Sting's solo records, and I love getting to play that stuff live. But honestly, those came a little later for me, like 10 Sumner's Tales and Soul Cages and playing on them. But this for me was, early on in my life. And again, this was one of those things where I think we heard Roxanne on the radio once. I was in the car with my dad. It didn't click with me yet. I wasn't ready for it or something. And I think he would have given me this particular hits collection. I was probably like 13 or 14 when I got this. So I had been playing drums long enough. I had some fundamental things worked out. And then Stuart just like blew the roof off of my brain with his playing on this record. And I think I was ready for it at that time. I have a really vivid memory of sitting in my room and pressing play on this on the jukebox and like staring at the jukebox until the whole record was done. And I was just totally like transfixed by everything about it, and trying to sort of decode what was happening was part of the fun, obviously, if you're a musician. But the way that they did such unorthodox things and made them palatable and pop friendly, and I mean, that's the genius of Sting's writing and of the band. The music is really quite strange to be as big as it is, for it to have been a huge pop success when there's no kick drum on one and things like that. It's pretty remarkable.
Absolutely. Well, do you want to play Can't Stand Losing You?
Yeah, this was my first favorite Police song, so I think that's a good place to start.
Perfect. Let me scroll all the way through all the James Taylor stuff. God, that record is so long. I love it. So here's Can't Stand Losing You.
Right out of the gate. Iconic.
Called you so many times today, and I guess it's all true what your girlfriends say. But you don't ever want to see me again, and your brother's gonna kill me, and he's 6'10". I guess you'd call
That Sting's lyric.
but I'm not prepared to go on like this. I can't stand losing. I can't stand losing. I can't stand losing you. 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 I see you sent my letters back and my LP records, and they're all scratched. I can't see the point in another day when nobody listens to a word I say. You can call it lack of confidence, but to carry on living doesn't make no sense. I can't stand losing. 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 I can't stand losing.
So this might be a completely dumb question because I've never actually seen Sting live, but
Yeah.
Is he the main bass player when he's playing?
Yeah.
Okay.
There have been tours where, like Christian McBride toured with him for a while on upright bass, and there have been times where there was another bassist. But yeah, when like now on tour, he plays bass and sings, and so I get to do stuff like that with him, you know.
How does it feel to like be playing a groove and in your in-ears you're hearing like Sting play with you? That's insane.
Well, yeah, like I feel really glad that I got to do a handful of like recording dates and promo stuff with him before I was ever like on the tour. I was able to kind of work through the fanboy stuff
Sure.
in small doses because yeah, like the first time I played not that song but like Roxanne or Message in a Bottle or one of those, and you lock into it, and it's like particularly the bass, when you hear that in your ears and you're locking into that pocket, like it's a very familiar pocket for me because I've played along with it so much. But to look across the room and it's like, oh yeah, that's the guy.
That's the dude. Yeah.
It's really, really special, and he has such a unique feel and a unique, you know, the bass lines he chooses. Again, like that song is such a great example to me of like the songwriting is fantastic. The lyrics are like dark but also really funny and so intelligent, and it's one of my favorite things about him as a writer. And then, you know, the bass line is like a hook. You know, that riff is so catchy right out of the gate. Stewart's playing kind of, it feels great, but you're also kind of a little disoriented in a great way. That verse groove is like the kicks on the end of 1 and 2, and then the snare hits on beat 4. It's such a weird little, like, it's almost like a Ronettes beat meets reggae or something, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, Andy's stuff in the bridge, that kind of floaty, you know, chorused out thing. It's all there to me on that. It's so unique and so economical. There's not a ton of overdubs. You can hear it. It's like, you know, that's the band in a room with some vocals stacked on top on the chorus, and all the arranging is built into the way that those guys play and the way that the instruments fit together. That's part of the fun too on this tour, is like our rhythm section is just me, and Sting plays bass, and Dominic Miller plays guitar, who's been with him forever. And then Kevon Webster is the keyboard player. That's the whole rhythm section. It's simple and elemental, and we get to really lock in with each other. And then we have amazing background singers and a great harmonica player who float over top of all that. And I feel like for these days in particular, when there's so much like production and tracks and stuff live, it's a fairly stripped down thing. It feels great to hear all those little things click together to make that sound in real time. But obviously the records for me are just yeah, and every little thing she does is magic. You know, that was the other highlight I mentioned, and to me that's like a perfect recording, song, performance, mix. Like it's just everything about that is just totally singular and a beautiful record.
Well, there's no rules. Let's just play it real quick.
Yeah, just a little bit.
All right, so number 5, the album is The Royal Scam. The artist is Steely Dan. Release year's 1976. Entire record. It's a shame if people haven't heard this front to back, but great drummers all over this. Bernard Purdie, Rick Marotta. So take it away.
So this record, this is a very special one to me. I'm a huge Steely Dan fan, and I almost picked Asia just because it has the widest number of drummers on it.
Mhm.
I mean, and so many drummers who I love, like Keltner and Gadd, and Purdy's on there too, Rick Marotta. But the truth is that this album just like kills me. And Bernard's on everything except for one song on this record. It's him and Chuck Rainey's on bass, and the two of them together are just lethal. This album I got because this is a bit of a story, but my dad and I used to go to this one Guitar Center in South Jersey when we needed stuff in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. And there's a guy who worked there named Roderick Hicks, who is still a buddy and a great drummer. And he ran the drum department at the Guitar Center. And so me and my dad got to be friendly with him. And I was probably like 14. And one time we're in and he goes, hey, if you guys are around, we're going to shut down the store. Bernard Purdy's coming in to film like an instructional thing. So you can come check it out if you want. And I was like, who's Bernard Purdy? I didn't know who he was at the time. And my dad was like, oh man, okay, we gotta fix this, you know. Unbeknownst to me, I already knew his playing because I loved so many records that he's on. He's another one of those guys who's just ubiquitous. Certainly I knew him from some Aretha stuff like Rocksteady and things like that. But we got The Royal Scam and we got Asia. So this was also my kind of gateway to Steely Dan. Yeah, so this was my introduction to Purdy's playing. And we did end up going to the filming of the instructional thing, and it was Bernard with the band. And then after the filming was done, I was in the drum room with our friend Roderick, and I was just playing around on one of the kits. And Bernard says to my dad, like, hey, he sounds good. You know, you guys should come take a lesson with me. And so I got to study with Bernard. I took, I think, 3 or 4 lessons with him over the course of like a year when I was 15 or something like that. And he was so kind to me and my dad. And one of my high school music teachers took me to one of the lessons just so he could sit in and check it out.
I'll drive. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly. And I definitely learned, I mean, he's a good teacher, but the truth is that most of what I learned from him, I learned just by getting to sit in a room at close proximity and watch him play the drums. And to hear him play a groove, like whisper quiet and talk to me over it while he's playing. And it's just the most grooving thing you've ever heard in your life. And he's playing with his fingers, you know?
Oh yeah.
It was so informative and formative for me. And those lessons are just like burned on my brain for that reason. I almost always play with the butt end of my left stick because Bernard showed me to do that. And I, you know, the little ghost nuts with my fingers when I'm playing cross stick, that's a total Bernard thing. And just so many little things I got from him. There's a lot of records that he played on that I could pick, but this one is really special to me. And I think he just sounds incredible on it. I was going to suggest that we listen to like the back half of Kid Charlemagne.
Sure.
Because this is one of those examples to me of the way that he sets up the full band hits and the way that he kind of plays around this outro section of the tune. And, you know, Larry Carlton's solo on this is like the greatest guitar solo ever. And, you know, there's so much to love about this recording. But when Bernard like really gets cooking toward the end of this track, it's just incredible. Good timing. This is the last verse.
There you go.
Well done.
Is there gas in the car? Yes, there's gas in the car. I think the people down the hall know who you are. Careful what you carry, 'cause the man is why you are still an outlaw in their eyes. Get along, Kid Charlemagne. Get along, Kid Charlemagne.
I love that he misses the crash and then recovers very nicely.
Very nicely. Yeah, I thought it would have been intentional, but yeah, he just
Well, that's my guess. Yeah. Sounds like he misses and hits a tom, and then he's like,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
my God. When you did stop going to him, was he like, and there you go, little bird, fly away? Or was it just like, now we're too busy, it's hard, or
Well, it was, the lessons with him were very like master class esque. It wasn't like, go work on this and I'll see you next week. It would just be kind of broader musical ideas. So there came a point where we did a few lessons and it kind of felt like, I had absorbed a good amount from him. And we didn't keep in very good touch, but then the craziest thing was that he moved to my hometown for a time. He lived like where I grew up, and my parents would run into him out at, whatever, at the grocery store or whatever. And this was last summer. I was in Italy. My girlfriend was over to visit me, and we were hanging in Florence, which was like so great. We had a day off in Florence to just chill, and
it's a fun sentence to say.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
And it was great to just be tourists and walk around. And we're standing outside somewhere in Florence, and I get a FaceTime from my mom, and I pick up, and she and Purdy are on FaceTime.
Oh.
It's like he goes to the dentist like right next to my mom's office or something like that. And so I got to say hi. I hadn't talked to him in a long time, and she had told him, that I was doing well and the gig I was on, and that I had ended up becoming a professional musician, and so I did get to say to him, which meant a lot to me, and hopefully to him. But I got to look him in the face and say thank you, and I think about you every time I play the drums, and I that meant a lot to me to get to say hi to him and say that. And he was very sweet, and it was really nice to see him because it had been a long time, like I said. So probably like 20 years since I had really been in touch. So that was really cool. A cool, like, full circle moment.
That makes me so happy just thinking of you. You have your lady with you. You have a day off in Florence. You're making money. You're killing it. Bernard Purdy calls you, and you get off the phone. It's like, can you imagine a better like afternoon? That sounds like amazing.
Not bad. Not bad.
Yeah,
and we ate some great pizza that day. Yeah, life is good, man.
I'm
very lucky. I'm very lucky out here, for sure.
Oh man, that makes me so happy.
Yeah, it was really special because he meant a lot. He means a lot to me. I wouldn't be the player I am without those lessons, and just without his work. His output as a player is like such a part of who I am and how I think about the drums. And he's such a sweet man too. He was always just so good to me as like a young upstart. He was so cool, and I really appreciated that.
Well, that's your Big Fat Five, and you're literally in France right now. So I don't want to keep you too long because I know the time difference is different. But for people for people listening, where can they check out more of Zach Jones? Where can they? Maybe you can't even announce yet, but where can people see you? What's going on? Then I'll let you go.
Well, I live in New York City, and so when I'm not on tour, I'm a drummer and a record producer about town. I love to be home, and I love to be a part of the New York music community. And I have my own band, which is called Zach Jones and the Tricky Bits, and I've released a bunch of music under that umbrella, and that's with some of my best friends. And if you like the stuff that I've sort of highlighted today, all of that is definitely in my writing and production and all that stuff. And
yeah, you're a great singer, man.
Thank you. Yeah, when I'm home, I like to work on producing records for other artists. I love to do that, and just play gigs around town. And yeah, right now we're about to wrap up this winter tour with Sting in Europe, and then we've got like a bunch of kind of one-off things next year. We're doing 2 shows with Billy Joel, which is going to be amazing. I've never seen him before, so this will be a great way to see him for the first time.
Yeah.
And then we'll be on the road in the summer over in Europe again. And so yeah, if you come to a Sting show, I'll be there. And if not, I'm in New York and got the records online, and I'm on Instagram at Zach Jones Music. That's my only sort of social thing, so that's where you can keep up with what I'm up to.
Well, Zach, dude, that was so fun, man. Honestly, such a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. Yeah, likewise, dude. It was like easy and fun, and thank you. It was a pleasure.
All right, this week's Big Fat Favorite is from Stella Mozgawa. She's played with Warpaint, Courtney Barnett, Kurt Vile, and many more. Her choice is the album Egi Bamyasi, released year's 1972. The artist is Can. The song choice is Spoon, and the drummer is Jackie Libzit. Here's what Stella has to say. Jackie is the drummer I think about the most when coming up with ideas in the studio. He invented an approach rather than a specific beat and always served the song while endlessly elevating what was already there. I love how Can incorporated early drum machines and loops, and Jackie sometimes sounded like a drum machine, both in tone and feel. His groove is incomparable and unique, often imitated and never replicated. All right, here is Spoon by Can.
Soon, with your fork, with a knife, speaks your joke, she stops your life. In the afternoon, having a spoon, she will be soon. With your fork, with a knife, speaks your joke, she stops your life.
And that's the show. If you're listening on a platform that allows ratings and reviews, do that. It helps more people find the show, so it'll get bigger and better, and hopefully I'll have a chance to sell out one day. But you'll be an OG listener that can brag to all your friends. Anyways, why don't you go and check us out at bigfatsnaredrum.com and follow us on all the socials. Just search for Big Fat Snare Drum and you will find us. The show is edited in part using Isotope RX Audio Editor. It's amazing, so go check that out at isotope.com. And thanks again to Gunnar Olsen for the theme music. Bye.